We got a chance to chat with this next gentleman and instantly liked him. Thought he did a fantastic job in our conversation, and then, subsequent conversations. We've had a lot of laughs and some fun, and he's running for state senate. So just because I laugh when he's on doesn't mean that's not necessarily a positive or a negative. But we like him. Brendan Saunders, again, endorsed Republican candidate running for state senate here in Connecticut. Good morning, man. How are you?
Very good. How are you this morning? Thank you for having me on.
We're doing good. So, a couple of days ago, a week ago or so, I had your opponent on, and he spent about a half hour talking about mostly power. And you had some issues with some of the things that he said, right?
Yeah, I do. But before I do that, do you remember Dave Letterman, right?
Sure.
You remember how he used to have the top 10?
Yes.
Well, this is in honor of, because I was listening to your previous guest, and you guys got talking about the police accountability bill.
Right.
And so, in honor of David Letterman's top 10, I have a top 5. These are the top 5 quotes that my opponent said about the police accountability bill. So, if I may, my opponent being Senator Norm Needleman from the 33rd District, these are the top 5 quotes. He says, number 1, there are clearly issues with this bill that I am troubled by. I wish that we had a drum roll, Number 2,
if I known, I would have had one ready. Jeez.
Number 2, I've tried to search my soul for what the right decision is, whether to vote for a bill that I know did not go through the proper process and that I know has been rushed. Number 3, there's a list of problems here. Number 4, we have added additional burdens, financial burdens, onto the municipalities, many of whom are already strapped. And number 5, or I should say, number 1, I should have counted backwards, even the communities burdened with policing issues will be burdened by the financial costs associated with this bill. So, thank you for enunciating that so well, but then the question is, why did you then go and vote for the bill?
Yeah. He
voted for it after clearly marking out some of the issues that were wrong with it. So, yeah, so we get this, he's an honest man, but sometimes he's also a little off. And that's what I felt when he called in with you. First of all, you imagine my surprise when I got up last Friday. And, I turned on the Elci show, and boom, there's my opponent. I was like, wow.
Well, so, we're an equal opportunity interviewer for sure.
And that I certainly understand. Yeah. I understand that. 1 minute into the interview, he said something that was very interesting, which basically proved the point that I've been making. And I've been making the point in the CT Examiner with my op-ed entitled Needleman's Energy Plan Places Heavy Burden on the Consumers. Please go check that out. You said to him, where do you stand on the push for alternative energy being the main reason for the rate increase with Eversource? And he said, I quote, it's not the main reason, but it is one of the reasons for sure. And I said, oh, well, thank you. I've had many arguments with my wife, and she's never made any kind of admission like that basically you're saying what I'm saying is right. That's amazing. What blew me away, though, is then, of course, that he tried to shift the responsibility to the Millstone Agreement and the Millstone Bill, which he said, hey, that was a bipartisan bill. There was a bunch of Republicans that voted for it. It promised big economic impact and jobs, and we saved Millstone. And he says, but I wasn't there. But then he also said, quote, I can't tell you I would have voted against it.
Right.
So I'm like, what are you doing here? You're acknowledging that this caused rate increases, but then you're putting it on the Republicans and saying I didn't vote for it. But then you're coming back and trying to say that you would have voted for it. It's kind of like trying to have your cake and eat it too. So I wasn't too sure exactly what he was trying to do in there, but I can tell you this. The rate increase was the fault and is the fault of pursuing alternative energy. That's the bottom line of what's happening here. And I was thankful to you because at one point you made it very clear that, hey, let's stop perpetuating this lie that Republicans, that conservatives don't want clean water, don't want clean air, don't want a nice environment. And I was very glad that you stepped up, because that, to me, that is one of those Democrat lies. I remember back in the 90s when they were perpetuating that lie that, Republicans want to starve people and, all that kind of thing. And so I was glad that you stepped up to say that. But what we don't want is we don't want to do this to the detriment of society, to the detriment of our people. And one of the detriments that you can create is a financial detriment. And that's what I believe is happening here. There are other ways to get to low carb and no carb energies without putting this on the shoulder of the people. And he's not pursuing it in that way. But if I may be more clear about specifically, it isn't simply the Millstone bill, which did say that by 2030 we want to get 40% of our energy from renewable sources. He then forwarded two bills. He specifically came into office. He has culpability because HB 5002, appropriately entitled An Act Concerning a Green Economy, became Public Act 1935. And the fiscal note on this was specifically him taking the concepts of the Millstone bill and implementing them. We're now going to make this happen. This is where I call it his dream of a green economy. And this is how he started to forward it with Public Act 1935. The fiscal note on this specifically says, and I point this out in my article, that this bill may increase costs for the ratepayers, right? So he knew that rate increases were coming. He then forwarded his windmill bill. This is one of his key pieces of legislature. He's very proud of it. But again, he knew that in forwarding the windmill bill that he was keeping up a system that was going to perpetuate Eversource being able to lose revenue on the front end through supply, but make up that loss on the back end through the distribution. And so that's what everybody has been seeing is their distribution rates climbing. So my question becomes, why do you keep pointing at Pura when Pura knew in December they actually approved the rate increase? Are you telling me that sitting there as the chair of the Energy Committee, you also didn't know back in December that the rate increase was coming? You also didn't know earlier in 2019 that the bills you were trumpeting and forwarding weren't going to raise the rates? Of course you knew. So, let's be honest about this, because my thing is there's got to be a better way to go about it than throwing this burden on the consumer and on the taxpayers.
His name is Brandon Saunders. He's joining us here. We got him until the top of the hour. If you want to call in, 860-464-9490, 631-317-1949. If you have a question that I may forget to ask, or you want something clarified and Brendan can do it for you, you can call in. Just a couple things. Make sure you know you're going to go right on hold, and we'll pick you up, put you right on the air in no time flat. Brendan, I got to take a quick break. I'll come right back in just a couple minutes. We do have a full bank of calls, so maybe we'll grab a couple, and we'll do that when we come back. Stick around. You're listening to 94.9 News Now and Stimulating Talk.